Hey, Alan Quinlan, good morning to you.
Morning, lads. How are you?
All good. There's so much rugby to be spoken about. Just can we touch first of all on the slight weirdness that crops up every single year, where you have the biggest game of the year, and then you're suddenly back into what, in a lot of cases, is obviously it's the URC Quarter-finals in France, the final regulation game of the top 14. In that way that obviously soccer has it nailed with the League Cup, FA Cup, Premier League, Champions League. Like, it's just weird, isn't it? And I mean, I don't know what can be done about it, but it's a big disadvantage for the two teams that make the Heineken Cup final.
It is, yeah, but I think it's always been like that, Adrian. Even when I was playing the Champions Cup, European Cup, as it was then, the Heineken Cup back then when I played, was always played before the domestic league final. I think it's a hard one to crack. I think, I know in football, the Champions League is the last kind of action of the season, the soccer season. But in rugby, I think it's down to probably the unions, the French union, the English union, who probably want to keep their own domestic leagues as the finale, if you like, and finish on a high in their own domestic leagues. I don't know if it's going to change or will it change, but it probably is, because I suppose for the French teams, is it the biggest competition for them? Well, the French league is to a lot of the owners there, and they want to finish in the high and in their own country, and probably in the Gallagher Premiership as well.
It's an ego thing, isn't it? But like, I mean, it's certainly in the Irish context, it feels like we're kind of shooting ourselves. Like, I know after the Saracens game a few years ago, Leinster did go on and ended up winning the Pro 14 or whatever it was at the time, was it 2019? But it didn't affect them too badly there. But like, there is a hangover to be had from it.
It is. It's difficult. I think probably for the French and the English, it's a little bit different, because they feel slightly different than the Irish provinces do towards the European Cup. As I said, their own domestic leagues have so much history as well, particularly the one in France. I think that's as good as, if not better, to some of them in winning that over a European Cup. But it is hard, and it's going to be hard for Leinster to pick themselves back up again. It's a totally different week. I was, thinking back as even last weekend, just thinking the heartache of losing, the emotion of that, or the emotion and the joy of winning. There's a massive toll there. Even if you win, it's obviously easier to pick yourself up. And La Rochelle have to go and play Lyon away this weekend to try and make the playoffs. It's a big challenge for them to pick themselves up, celebrating for a few days on a massive high. I think the only advantage to them is Lyon won the Challenge Cup on Friday night as well. But it's a bit of an emotional roller coaster, and it is a challenge for Leinster to pick themselves up. Luckily, they're at home against Glasgow tomorrow, and they'll feel deflated. It's hard, and we saw what happened to Ulster earlier in the season when Toulouse knocked them out in the round 16 game. Munster went up there the week after, and Ulster were flat. You could see they were drained. So it does have a big emotional kind of roller coaster. But that sport, I don't think it's going to change, Adrian, because I don't think the French, particularly the French, will change. They want the final of their league as the last game of the season.
Yeah, they're only going the opposite way, if anything. You watched, there's a brilliant Ronan O'Gara column in probably one of his best, I would say, in the Examiner this morning, that details the last week and the run-in to last weekend. It's quite brilliant, I have to say, and definitely worth checking out. And he was on, obviously, with Ger yesterday at Ashling, picking through the bones of his week as well, which I know you saw a little bit of. We don't want to rehash the game again, but any thoughts on the week that was for one of your best buddies?
I just think that, and I said it at the start of the week, I met him and Leo Cullen and some of the other coaching staff before the game, and I was intrigued. I'm always intrigued what's going through the head, the adrenaline rush, the excitement, the nervousness, all that kind of stuff. You put so much time and effort into getting to this place, and you kind of have one hand on the trophy. And, I was standing back down around the tunnel area, just looking at different players from both sides, different coaches, and just thinking, someone's going to have that absolute joy and someone's going to have that devastation. And I suppose Raj made a very good point in his column that, he's now, people are saying he's this brilliant coach, and he's talking it down, saying he's not. You're only a small bit away from us questioning Ronan O'Gara this week and saying, is he failing? Did he fail? He's lost 3 finals. Is there something up? What's going on? So the small margins in sport, this Leinster team are not going anywhere. And the same way Leo Cullen has done a fantastic job with Leinster in the last few years doesn't make him a bad coach. No, it's just small margins and sometimes a little bit of a swing in momentum. And probably what stood out for me is how strong and resilient La Rochelle were. Maybe we all underestimated him a little bit. And I've absolutely no doubt he had a massive effect. And maybe the experiences of losing the 2 finals last year just gave him an incredible determination. I love the fact that, Gregory Aldred, who's still only 24 and has been a brilliant player for France for the last couple of years, you see players mature and the way he kind of took the players aside and just had a 5-minute chat about what can happen and what way you'll feel after this game. And, it can spur people on. And they showed that they had an incredible hunger and desire. But they're a good team as well. Like La Rochelle don't have the superstars. Leinster, more balanced side. And if they played again this week, would Leinster win the game? Well, possibly, yes. I think just La Rochelle got a lot of stuff right, particularly at the back end of that game. And look, there's no point in going and analysing the game again. This Leinster team are not going anywhere. I think they're going to come back stronger from this again.
Well,
because they lost.
Can I ask you just on that, Quinny, now that you bring it up, right? Like in terms of where Leinster go from here and in terms of the lessons that come from that game, and like he spoke obviously in detail after the game and subsequently about watching the Connacht match and watching the Leicester game. Let Leinster have it outside and you let them run with the ball, i.e. you're going to lose the game, I think was his short story from that. Now look, I suppose it's not going to be new news to most coaches who are coaching against Leinster, but it's laid out there now in black and white. How much encouragement does that give to the likes of a Glasgow this weekend in terms of a template of how to beat Leinster?
It gives them some encouragement, but it's easier said than done. You've got to step up. There's going to be, I would imagine, a kind of an angry, aggressive reaction. We won't have the teams till lunchtime, but I'm sure Leinster will have to mix it up a little bit and get the balance right there about making some changes and freshening things a little bit. It'll give Glasgow probably hope because, it's like Adrian playing the All Blacks when they were World Cup winners and when they had the great teams over the years winning the World Cup in 11 and 15, the dominance they had. How do you stop them? How do you compete with them? Well, you've got to be really physical, slow down their ball and make sure you're on set beat. All the obvious things that you want to get right before a game anyway. La Rochelle got a lot of those things right. Can Glasgow do it tomorrow? Well, they'll have a little bit of hope out of that and they'll try and tap into the psychological kind of trauma that Leinster have experienced. But, if you think that's going to win you a game, it's only a part of the game. Being really up for it yourselves, being ruthless, being accurate, they've got to go out and perform at Glasgow tomorrow. And where it comes into play is psychologically, if you can have a few hammer blows during the game, score the crucial stage. If Glasgow start well tomorrow, they kick a couple of penalties, if they nudge themselves in front, if they make it a real intense contest, that'll give them hope going into the second half. And as a player in any sport, if you have that belief and hope, even an individual, a golfer going into the last day and Sunday into a big championship, if you feel that your confidence is high and your self-belief is good, well, then it gives you a chance of really kind of going at the back end of the match. And but it's easier said than done. I think Leinster will react. Glasgow, when they've been inconsistent this year, they've lost 8 games in the league. Not that Glasgow, maybe the dominant side that we saw a number of years ago, but they still have a lot of good internationals and they're a very dangerous side. So Leinster can't underestimate them. The comfort for Leinster is that it's at home and they would have been able to recover a bit better this week. But sport is funny and psychologically they will be hurting and they've got to pick themselves up. I think tomorrow, if they get through tomorrow, they can really recalibrate and
regroup,
visualize themselves lifting the trophy at the end. That's what you want to do as a group, and that would have been the challenge this week for them to get up. But Glasgow will sense a little opportunity, but if they think that's just going to win the game from psychologically, they could come seriously unstuck. They've got to play.
What did you say to him on the pitch beforehand? I imagine it was like...
this is obviously pivotal in the victory.
I imagine it was like a dude from Munster.
No, do it for himself, really. Look, at the end of the day, people know I'm close to Rog, and we have a great relationship. We're good friends. I'm always intrigued by him. I said this openly, rooming with Rog before a Heineken Cup final in 2008, my nerves were shot to bits. We were worried about tickets. There's different people on to me on the Friday night looking for more tickets and this, that and the other. My experiences in 2006 were different, obviously, with the injury. But I was really kind of just nervous and on edge. And you just chat to someone like him. He's always been a leader, and he always intrigued me about his calmness. I would have had a certain level of anxiety, and even away from sport, he just seems to have a good balance and view on things, and has an ability to, I've said this before, give you a clipping very easily, but also tell you he believes in you. And so what did I say to him? Very little. I was kind of intrigued about how calm he was, and how confident, not arrogant or cocky, but I think, and I had a great chat with Victor Vito before the game on the sideline. They were nearly ready to go out. And I was just commiserating with him missing a final, because it's heartbreaking for any player to be that close and to miss out. I asked him why he played the week before, because they needed to win the game against Stade, and he had been injured before and hadn't played in a lot of games. And he told me that they had their best training week. So they created some sort of a buzz. I could sense a little bit of that. I didn't sense any kind of fatigue or fragility in Leinster's preparation or their body language. But I just thought Rog was really calm and just wished him luck. That was it. Yeah. Met his kids before the game and just thought, God, people often ask, do you miss it? You miss days like that, finals, the buzz, the excitement. It was incredible, and he got it right on the day.
That was class. Ulster Munster is a cracker of a way to kick off the weekend. 7:35 tonight, Belfast. It's still time, Quinny, for the bemoaned Van Graan ticket to walk out of town with, an air of, look, we did all right. But a loss tonight, and it's all over, and everybody's going to reflect on this in not that amazing terms.
Yeah, I was just thinking about it during the week, and there's a lot of pressure on both sides here. I think if Ulster lose, they would have lost, went out to Toulouse in the round 16, losing the quarter-final at home to Munster. Both those games at home to Munster, they'll finish on a real kind of negative. And Dan McFarlane is there next year. Johan Van Graan, Stephen Larkham are not. And if they lose up in Belfast, Munster, well, there'll be criticism, won't there? It'll be a tough one to take, and it'll be a disappointing way to end. There's been 4 semi-finals and 1 final in the last 5 years, I think, for Munster, and it's been disappointing. I hope it doesn't happen. Obviously, I want Munster to win. I just don't want it to happen to Johan Van Graan, that he goes out like that. But again, there's no sentiment or, perfect scenario in sport when you're finishing up.
No. Call it for us.
But there's pressure. Yeah, there's pressure on them, and they get well paid, and that's where you're at. But it's a tough game for both sides. I think there's probably more pressure on Munster to get through here, which is very difficult. They're the only side to beat Ulster in the league there this year, but I think this will be more challenging than the league game we saw a few weeks ago.
All right, well, look, we'll see. And in a word?
Oh, jeez. I'm going to say Munster.
Right, you're not convinced, though. That's fair enough. We'll pick through the bones of it early next week when you enjoy the games over the weekend. Good man.
Cheers, lads.